opposition.
Then we're getting back.
His own main estimates and public accounts, he's collected over $20 billion in taxes and only returned $18 billion. So it is factually inaccurate to say that he's given every penny back. Right. In fact, we know that in every single province where the carbon tax applies, Canadians pay more than they get back, and there is only one provincial party that supports the tax. The BC NDP is happily implementing this federally mandated tax grab. Will the Prime Minister today allow British Columbia to cancel the April Fool's Day tax hike?
Yeah, we need help here in BC, man. Things are so expensive.
Speaker, in a question and a contrast on facts, the reality is
that's misogynistic. You spill water on a woman who's wearing a white shirt.
2008, and the federal government has no involvement in British Columbia's price on pollution. It is
sorry, persons with a vagina.
Error of fact that the leader of the Conservative Party is trying to share with this House. He must be mistaken. Maybe it's an honest mistake, but the reality is he is wrong on the fact on that, just like he's wrong on the fact that he doesn't understand that 8 out of 10 Canadian families do better with the price on pollution.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Page 75 of the BC budget confirmed that they were bringing in the tax hike on April 1st because they're forced to by federal law. Yeah. And according to the Vancouver Sun, the NDP budget and fiscal plan presented in February says the carbon tax will raise $9 billion over 3 years. The New Democrats plan to give back $3.5 billion in climate action tax credits to low and middle income folks and spend the rest as they see fit. So will the Prime Minister end the carbon tax coalition with his provincial NDP BC counterparts so that British Columbians can get their money back?
Yeah. Folks, that is the only way Justin Trudeau can make a woman wet, is by throwing water on her.
I think that for someone who's been railing against our plan to fight climate change and put more money in people's pockets for months now, he'd actually have done his research to understand how it works.
Speaking of railing, Trudeau's not getting any, so he's trying to rail all of Canada.
Their own plan to fight climate change, as long as it is sufficiently rigorous to be fair to the other provinces that are also doing the same. That's what a Canada-wide plan to fight climate change is all about. Yes, the federal backstop gives back more money directly to Canadians in 8 out of 10 cases, but BC and others are free to do their own thing.
Smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet.
All right, he found his cue card, and he finally talked about the rebate. So he says the average family in Alberta will get $1,800 while they pay $2,943.
Oh my God.
Next year alone, after this forthcoming hike, the average Alberta family will pay $1,100 more in carbon taxes than he gives back in his phony checks. Will the Prime Minister tell us if he understands that $2,900 is bigger than $1,800?
Drop some W's for Pierre!
Mr. Speaker, how about a different stat? A stat that the Finance Ministry analyzed. Turns out that for an average income quintile group, the average household of 2.5 Canadians, average net benefit per household in Alberta, $723 a year. Wow. That's $723 in the pockets of the average Albertan family because we put a price on pollution that puts more money back in the pockets out of 8 out of 10 Canadian families. That is what we are doing. That's how we fight climate change.
This guy is insane, man.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He wants you to know, Mr. Speaker, he has alternative facts. I get mine from the parliamentary officer that reports directly to Parliament and is independent. He's using numbers that come from officials that report to him and depend on him for their job. So let's take another province, Ontario, where the Liberal leader has now come out against this Prime Minister's carbon tax. Maybe she knows that the average cost to an Ontario family of the federal carbon tax is $1,674 for this coming year. How much is the rebate in Ontario?
Oh my God. die.
Prime Minister.
The average net benefit per household in Ontario is $255 a year.
Wow.
That is fighting climate change while putting more money in the pockets of Canadians. The Parliamentary Budget Officer himself demonstrated that 8 out of 10 Canadian families in regions that get the carbon price backstop do better with the price on pollution, put more money back in their pockets than it costs them on the fight for climate change. This is the plan we're delivering for Canadians. That's the plan he wants to scrap.
By taxing people, huh? By taxing people.
Speaker, I'm going to read again the testimony from the March 18th appearance of the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Once you factor in the rebate, but also the economic impacts, the majority of households will see a negative impact as a result of the carbon tax. End quote. The Prime Minister plans to make this problem worse with a carbon tax hike on heat, on homes, on fuel, on food. We will not stand for it. So once again, which will it be? Will he spike the hike or will we have a carbon tax election?
How about a vote of no confidence?
What will it be, Mr. Speaker? It will be that Canadians get more money with the Canada carbon rebate. 80% of Canadian households in areas where the federal carbon tax applies get more money every year from the Canada carbon rebate than they pay in the price on pollution. On top of that, we are fighting climate change, making our industries more competitive and preparing a better future. There is no plan on the Conservative side of the House to either help Canadians with rebate checks or fight climate change.
Yeah, not by taxing people to death.
The opposition.
Not only did the Parliamentary Budget Officer testify that the majority of households will pay more in carbon taxes than they will get back in rebates, there is a table showing that every single province in which this tax applies, the middle-class families pay vastly more than they get back, and Canadians know it, because under this Prime Minister, they've seen their food, their fuel, their homes, their heating go through the roof. But why don't we just end the debate and let Canadians decide and have a carbon tax election?
Leave it up to a vote. Let me know down in the comments of the stream who you voting for. Yay on the carbon tax or nay? Thumb up or thumb down?
Prime Minister.
Let me know down below.
The Parliamentary Budget Officer clearly spelled out that 8 out of 10 Canadian families in areas where the price on pollution applies get more money back every year than they pay in the price on pollution. That's because we created a plan that not only is one of the strongest plans to fight climate change in the world, but it puts more money back in the pockets of middle-class Canadians as we build a stronger future, better careers, more competitiveness, and a safer environment for generations to come. That's the plan we have. That's not what they're doing.
Parties, there's been an outbreak of common sense on the carbon tax. In fact, Nova Scotia Liberals, NDPers, and Conservatives passed a unanimous motion in their legislature this week calling on their federal MPs to vote against the Prime Minister's 23% carbon tax hike. No wonder. The cost of the carbon tax to the average Nova Scotia family will be $1,605 according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer. $1,605. How much will be the rebate for the average family?
He's going to say that the rebate is more than what you pay.
The federal price on pollution is a backstop. It's a system that we put in place to both fight climate change everywhere across the country and put more money back in the pockets of Canadian families where it applies. Every single province had and continues to have the option to replace the federal price on pollution with their own program as long as it is as rigorous and stringent as the federal price on pollution. As long as they have a plan to fight climate change, they can do what they want as long as it's strong enough. That's the options the provinces have. So they can take that option. We're going to keep putting money.
Drop some L's for
the opposition.
Trudeau.
Now, that's demonstrably false because Nova Scotia actually has a climate change plan, which he rejected and overrode with a federal carbon tax that is opposed by New Democrats, Liberals, and Conservatives unanimously in the province's legislature. But you notice he wouldn't answer my question. He's been bragging about these rebates. But then when we talk about the cost, all of a sudden he forgets the rebate. So I'm going to give him a second chance. In the province of Nova Scotia, the cost to the average family will be $1,500. $1,500. $1,500 per Nova Scotia family. How much is the rebate?
Pretty simple question, and he's not going to give us an answer.
Speaker, that is simply not true. The reality is, for 8 out of 10 families right across the country in backstop provinces, families do better off with the Canada carbon rebate than they do with the extra costs of the price on pollution. This is a plan to fight climate change, but it's also a plan to put more money in the pockets of families from coast to coast to coast. Now, the Conservative leader doesn't care about fighting against climate change, and he doesn't care about affordability either, because he would rip up the rebate checks and he would do less on fighting climate change. We're going to keep delivering for Canadians.
Oh my God, drop another L in the chat for Trudeau.
Won't answer the question. All the Liberal ministers came in with little cue cards a week ago with all these rebates on them. They were waving them around, very proud. Yep. And then when we went to the parliamentary budget officer and said, give us the full price by province, and we quoted that, for example, in Nova Scotia, it's $1,500 in cost to the average family, according to the PBO. Again, $1,500 in costs. What is the rebate? The number.
There you go. Very simple question.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we see the lengths to which the Conservative Party will go to mislead Canadians about a plan that fights climate change and puts more money in the pockets out of 8 or 10 Canadian families. The parliamentary budget officer himself admitted and said that you cannot take his words out of context because he did not calculate the costs of inaction on fighting climate change. He did not calculate the competitive advantages of the innovation and the solutions and the economic growth that comes with putting a price on pollution. The Conservative Party are not telling the full story.
What a load of crap.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he did not, the parliamentary budget officer did not include the cost of climate change because the carbon tax doesn't address the cost of climate change. The parliamentary budget officer made clear the carbon tax will do nothing to change the cost of climate change, and that's why the tax costs more for every family in every province. So let's go to Alberta, where the two of the NDP leadership candidates have come out against the carbon tax, and the Prime Minister's only friend in the province, Naheed Nenshi, has gone totally silent. Albertans will pay $2,900 in carbon tax per family. What will be the rebate for them?
There you go, Pierre.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, $1,800 a year is the average, is the family of 4 in Alberta carbon Canada. That is,
he's like the pig from,
and according to an analysis by the Parliament
Teletoons or whatever that show's called,
it's more than they pay in extra price on pollution because of the price we put into the federal level. The price on pollution puts more money in the pockets out of 8 of 10 Canadian families and fights climate change while building a stronger, more competitive future. The Conservatives have no plan to fight climate change and no plan to help Canadians with rebate checks.
Chat, do me a favor, smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet.
All right, he found his cue card, and he finally talked about the rebate. So he says the average family in Alberta will get $1,800 while they pay $2,943.
Oh my God.
Next year alone, after this forthcoming hike, the average Alberta family will pay $1,100 more in carbon taxes than he gives back in his phony checks. Will the Prime Minister tell us if he understands that $2,900 is bigger than $1,800?
Drop some W's for Pierre!
Mr. Speaker, how about a different stat? A stat that the Finance Ministry analyzed. Turns out out that for an average income quintile group, the average household of 2.5 Canadians, average net benefit per household in Alberta, $723 a year. Wow. That's $723 in the pockets of the average Albertan family because we put a price on pollution that puts more money back in the pockets out of 8 out of 10 Canadian families. That is what we are doing. That's how we fight climate change.
This guy is insane, man.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He wants you to know, Mr. Speaker, he has alternative facts. I get mine from the parliamentary officer that reports directly to Parliament and is independent. He's using numbers that come from officials that report to him and depend on him for their job. So let's take another province, Ontario, where the Liberal leader has now come out against this Prime Minister's carbon tax. Maybe she knows that the average cost to an Ontario family of the federal carbon tax is $1,674 for this coming year. How much is the rebate in Ontario?
Oh my God.
Prime Minister.
The average net benefit per household in Ontario is $255 a year. Wow. That is fighting climate change while putting more money in the pockets of Canadians. The parliamentary budget officer himself demonstrated that 8 out of 10 Canadian families in regions that get the carbon price backstop do better with the price on pollution, put more money back in their pockets than it costs them on the fight for climate change. This is the plan we're delivering for Canadians. That's the plan he wants to scrap.